The E-C4 was first announced back in June of 2020 and was released alongside the more conventional internal combustion third-generation Citroen C4 and immediately became extremely popular. It came out at a time where the electrified SUV segment was still pretty much in its infancy, and its rivals were either more expensive, smaller, or simply less comfortable and practical. And if you want to know what we thought of that car when it was first released, then click on the pop-up banner above to watch our full in-depth review. But that was back then. Now, in 2023, that same market has grown extensively, and whilst a new silhouette is always refreshing to look at, how does this E-C4X fare against the updated versions of its main rivals, such as the Peugeot E3008, the Volkswagen ID.3, and the Kia Niro EV? Well, let's start by having a look at its design and what differs between this model and a normal E-C4. Because as you can see, this front end is almost indistinguishable from that original variant. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think that it's still quite striking and stands out on our UK roads. And I love the X effect that you get when you merge the daytime running lights with the LED headlights and these parallel chrome lines that merge seamlessly into the Citroen badge. Obviously, being an electric vehicle, there's no need for a massive grille. Instead, we have two air intakes, a thin one just underneath that same badge and a bigger one down below. They come in this nice pattern slated design, and they're here to help cool those batteries whilst on the go. Another design cue at the front here are these indents on the bonnet that help accentuate and frame that fascia, giving it a really distinctive look. If we move over to the side, this is where things start to differ from that original E-C4 model. And unlike BMW, where the X normally tends to stand for a specific body type, here with the Citroen, the X means a cross between silhouettes. And as you can see, the E-C4X has a nice fastback shape to it, which I'm a really big fan of and actually prefer it to the original model. And you could argue that this is just a visual thing, but it does improve aerodynamics. So even though this version is longer and heavier than the original model, it still manages slightly better range. As standard, you'll get these side bumpers that give it a somewhat rugged appeal. You'll also get rear tinted windows, but this chrome strip, it's only available with shine trims upwards, because as standard with the entry-level Sense trim, it will be in a matte black finish, and instead of body-colored door handles, you'll get matte black ones. Wing mirrors are heated, electronically folding, and will come in a black finish as standard. The alloy wheels only come in a single 18-inch design. However, I do like the cross-light pattern, and being a smaller alloy means that it will help smooth out those cracks on the road. When it comes to colors, the E-C4X comes in a lovely polar white finish, which I'm a really big fan of. For an additional £595 though, you can unlock a few other metallic options. But how much longer is this new silhouette? Well, at 4,600mm, it is 240mm longer than the original version. However, width and height have remained the same, so it'll be interesting to see how this fastback shape impacts interior, practicality, and boot space. Now, the design of the back of the E-C4X also differs from the original model, and whilst I do like these sharp arrow-shaped LED taillights, I can't help but feeling that there's something missing at the back here, especially when considering that the design of the rear end of that original model was a lot more intricate and stylish. But how does this length increase and shape impact the boot? Well, the main difference is in its opening, because as you can see, unlike an SUV, here you have a much narrower gap to play with, and whilst I don't think this will impact normal mundane daily tasks such as going to the supermarket, it will become a slight issue as soon as you're trying to fit in a piece of furniture or even a double buggy. But when it comes to volume, you have 510 litres of boot capacity, which is class leading in this segment, and also a 130 litre increase over the original E-C4. So there's more than enough room for your weekly shop. You could possibly fit around 8 carry-on suitcases, plus you have access to a generous amount of underfloor boot space. Shine trims upwards also give you a ski latch so that you can slide in longer objects through without having to fold down those rear seats. But if you do need to extend that boot capacity, you can fold the rear seats in a 60-40 arrangement. But like the ski latch, to do so, you need to do it via the back here, because there's no way of accessing those levers from the boot. And once you do fold those seats, they do not click in place, and there's a significant height difference between the back of the seat and the boot floor, and that will make it harder to push those heavier objects towards the front. When it comes to niceties in a boot, there's also not a great amount of variety. You got a small light so that you can see what you're doing in the dark, plus you get 4 anchor points so you can tie down those objects that like to roll around. So even though the volume is class leading, this shape does impact boot practicality. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a deal breaker, but it's definitely something that you should take in consideration. But does this shape also impact ride quality and comfort? Well, let's join Tony and see what he makes of it. And if you don't know Tony, Tony is one of our amazing vehicle specialists who's been working for OSV for,
well, I think 5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years.
But I've been in the motor trade for over 40 years.
So before we start with the actual driving experience section, I just wanted to ask you to let our viewers know which cars you currently drive and if you ever driven an electric car before.
Well, I have driven an electric car, and at first it's a strange experience, but once you get used to it, an enjoyable one. I'm not sure I should tell you what car I drive at the moment. It's about a 300-year-old Audi A4 Cabriolet, because I'm going through a midlife crisis or an old life crisis.
How long have you driven that for?
For about 3 years now, but I'll drive it as long as it lasts, or until the 8-track stereo packs up.
What are your first impressions of this car? Because obviously with normal electric cars, especially we filmed the Kia EV6 a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that has a lot of power. You know, the torque on that is absolutely insane. But on this one, I feel like it's slightly different. It's a bit more almost like a combustion engine, the way it drives.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it doesn't pull away rapidly. You have to give it a bit of welly before you get it really going. But it's still a smooth passage. Get up to speed quite quickly, and it's comfortable.
So the E-C4X is powered by a 100 kilowatt electric motor powering those front wheels, and the output of this powertrain is 136 brake horsepower, which produces 260 newton meters of torque, giving it a 0 to 62 time of around 10 seconds. So it isn't the quickest off the block, but I think we can both agree that acceleration and torque weren't the main focal points for Citroen with this car. I think they were trying to create the most comfortable rides you could experience in an EV. And so far, I think they've achieved that, but what are your thoughts on that?
I agree, the acceleration isn't sharp, but the ride is fairly comfortable. Seating position's good. Visibility's good, even with my eyesight. I can see everything. Well, most everything. The suspension feels a bit sort of bouncy. I suppose that's good with all these potholes in the road. It doesn't feel as responsive as some. I think one of the points you mentioned is that it's designed for a comfortable ride, and I think that's probably one of its strengths. It doesn't feel like you're driving a car that wants to perform, but it does feel comfortable. The brakes feel a little bit spongy. They don't seem to, you have to put a bit of pressure on to bring yourself to a stop. Mind you, that's when you're trying to stop at 60 miles an hour, so I suppose that would be the case most times. But all in all, it's a comfortable ride, not spectacular and not something that's going to excite you. But again, it feels a nice car to drive.
How are you finding that steering? Because obviously we're going around corners and stuff. It looks like it's quite light.
It's not something I'd have to wear a crash helmet to drive, put it that way.
And I think those 18-inch alloy wheels, when combined with that advanced comfort suspension that Citroen has implemented here, which replaces conventional mechanical stops for hydraulical stops, combined with a shock absorber, really helps smooth out those cracks on the road. Like we discussed in previous reviews, I think to me the most important thing stopping people from going electric nowadays is the range anxiety. And unfortunately, this E-C4X has inherited the same kilowatt-hour battery that the normal E-C4 has, which gives it around 220 miles of range. But I think the infrastructure is slowly coming together. I mean, just in Worthing, we have about 3 or 4 fast charging spots, and this car actually supports 100 kilowatts fast charging, which will give it a 10 to 80% charge in just 30 minutes, which hopefully will help calm down that anxiety. At home, we're looking, if you were just to plug it in into a normal conventional socket, it would be around 7.5 hours to fully charge it.
Yeah.
So it's just about average when compared to the rest of the EVs out right now. But what are your thoughts on this? What do you think about those charging times? What's stopping you? Is anything stopping you from going electric?
I would have thought around town you'd be more comfortable because you've got home, so you can charge it at home. My worry would be on a long drive, finding charging points on a motorway and having those points be available when you did. It's all very well charging in 30 minutes, but if the charge points are all busy and you can't get in there, a 5-hour journey could very easily become a 7-8 hour journey. if you have to wait for the charging points. That would probably be my only concern. But around town, you can manage it much easier, so I think it would be no problem with that.
So I think for those in those circumstances, 222 miles isn't that bad. But like you said,
No.
it's when it comes to those longer journeys that it actually might impact. But I suppose if you plan ahead, it's unfortunately it's not one of those cases where you can just hop into the car and fill up at the petrol station, just keep on going, isn't it?
No.
You just need to plan ahead, I suppose, which might take away from the experience of having a long journey. But I think once you get used to it, it's probably fine, and you just take that into consideration every time you go for a longer journey.
7.5 hours is fine if you're at home overnight charging. How much electricity does that use?
I think one of the things that Citroen has implemented to help reduce that cost is if you have one of their wall boxes, you can actually then use their app to select when you want the car to start charging. To obviously, if you've got lower tariffs throughout the night, which is when the DAs are cheaper, then you can actually benefit from that. Now, obviously, like you said, considering the price of electricity at the moment in 2023, it's something to consider.
It is, but that sounds like a good option to be able to charge when the tariffs are lower. And if it's pre-programmable, then it's something that will be there all the time for you. So that would help. And ultimately, every electric car needs charging. So it's not to the detriment of this particular model that one's 7.5 hours. I don't know what the other ones are, but
pretty much the same. I suppose it could be a lot worse. One thing that I actually really like about this car is that unlike other EVs that we've driven before, here it doesn't look like you're driving a spaceship. So it is electric, but it's not screaming at your face, I'm an EV, I'm special. You do have your driver display, you do have your infotainment display, but then you actually have physical buttons for your AC, which is great to see. And aesthetically, it doesn't look over the top.
I agree with you. It looks a bit more like a conventional dashboard, not so much space age. The heads-up display is a great facility. I don't know why most cars haven't got them, because it really gives you a straight shot of the mileage you're doing at any one time. With, on this display, the speed limits in each area you're in. So you know when you're going over the speed limit, so you've got no excuse really. Doesn't help, but you've got no excuse. The layout, as you say, is not so much space age, but to be honest with you, most features and fittings are way above my pay grade. I'm a bit of a troglodyte, so push-button stuff is fine for me, but this has easy accessibility for the buttons. It has knobs that you can twist, so for people of my age, I think it would be very useful.
For anyone, really. I don't know how most people can actually navigate those touch-sensitive buttons. I just feel like every time you need to use them, you actually need to look down. Whilst in this case, you can just memorize where a certain button is, and you do it automatically, don't you? You don't have to look at it. It's like, oh, okay, I remember now the button is here. Whilst if it's on the touch-sensitive interior with those shortcuts, you kind of get things.
You are a bit, and when everything's on a screen, as you say, touch screen, if it's on a screen, it's really attracting you to look at it. And that's taking your eyes off the road, because you can't help but look at the screen. I haven't used them a lot, so I don't know how delicate they are and how accurate you'd have to be on what you press. But knowing me, I'd press the wrong button anyway. So I agree with that. I think safety-wise, this layout is better. Whether or not it's more attractive or not, I'm not sure, because this is what we've had all the way through. Some people like the space age features, but this, for somebody like me, is fine.
But like most other cars nowadays, here with the E-C4X, you also have 3 different driving modes. So you've got Eco, you've got Normal, and then you've got Sport. In theory, they should change and they should impact the range that you've got. So Eco obviously should preserve that range so that you can go a bit further. And then obviously Sport mode trades that range in for a bit more performance. Is that something that you actually feel whilst going through the 3 different modes, or do you think that's mainly soft?
No, you can definitely feel it. I mean, as much as we criticise the car for not being performance-led, when you do put it in performance mode, you really feel the difference. Everything picks up instantly. We just tried it there and we went from 25 miles an hour to 70, and that was instant. So you definitely feel the response. It even pushes you back in the seat a bit. So it is definitely worth it. obviously not something you'd want to use too often.
Since we're on the topic of safety, this car comes with your usual safety features such as lane keep assist, automatic emergency braking, amongst many others. However, it only achieved a 4-star Euro NCAP rating, which does by no means mean that this car is unsafe to drive, because otherwise it just wouldn't be allowed on our roads anyway. But it's something to think about. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that we should be paying attention to those Euro NCAP ratings? Do you think they are just a figure and a number, and those other safety features are just nice to haves? Or do you think it's quite important to look at those, and those should be one of the main criteria when purchasing it?
I think the NCAP ratings are there for a reason, so they should be paid attention to. Whatever makes a car safer, especially a vehicle of this size, which will normally be a family car, safety must always come first. The visibility is fine, but it's not what a normal SUV would give you. Safety-wise, again, the heads-up display is a great asset. Anytime taking your eyes off the road is dangerous time. So all the images you need, everything is there. That's not a problem. I don't think there's really any blind spots that I've seen. Because of the raked back window, visibility out of the rear window isn't the same as most SUVs, which have a more vertical back window. But it isn't a problem. Visibility's still there. Wind noise, when we first started on the drive, it did seem very noisy, but I think that was the fact that obviously it's an electric car, there's no engine noise.
Because I suppose that sound is not being masked by the engine.
Yeah,
you would have on a conventional petrol or diesel car. When it comes to warranty, you get 3 years or up to 60,000 miles.
There's an awful lot of manufacturers, certainly foreign manufacturers, that are offering 5-year or 7-year warranties and 100,000 miles. So an aerial shot of how the car's parked, slightly that way. Definitely very useful.
And on that note, who do you think this car is for?
I would think it would be ideal for a young family or middle-aged couple.
So we'll go back now, and then I will just show you the rest of this interior space in a bit more detail. Okay, thank you so much for joining us and for taking me on this ride.
It's been a pleasure.
What is your direct number? So if people want to contact you directly,
I would be delighted to help anybody with any make of car, any method of purchase, and my direct dial number is 01903 257 144. I look forward to speaking to you.
not much has changed when it comes to the interior quality, comfort and variety. But that's definitely not a bad thing. I really have been missing these advanced comfort seats because they are wider and plushier than what you'd find in most other vehicles. With Sense and Shine trims, you'll get the urban grey interior, which basically means that your seats will come upholstered in a patterned grey cloth material. And if you climb up to the range-topping Shine Plus trim, which is what we have here, you'll get Alcantara and black leather upholstered seats. And for an additional £800, you can configure these black sienna leather upholstered seats, which do look really nice. Regardless of which trim you opt for, you will find a nice amount of material variety, such as your nice soft touch materials on top of the doors and dashboard. Gloss black surfaces have been used, but sparingly, which is really nice to see. You also get nice accents of chrome edging on your vents, steering wheel and doors. Plus, if you look lower down, you will find your hard, robust durable plastics. If you opt for the entry-level Sense trim, you'll get a grained leather-wrapped multifunction steering wheel, but if you climb up to Shine trims upwards, you get this exclusive leather-wrapped multifunction steering wheel, which feels really nice on the hands and it's extremely grippy. Behind the wheel, you get a 5.5-inch digital instrument cluster that shows you your basic driving information such as your speed, range and current driving mode. But if you opt for Shine and Shine Plus trims, you get one of my favorite features, a heads-up display. This is a really convenient and easy way to get access to your basic driving information without having to take your eyes off the road, because it gives you the illusion that that same information is being projected onto the road ahead. At this point, this is no longer new tech, so I don't see why most cars shouldn't come equipped with it as standard. And on that same topic of tech, you get a 10-inch infotainment display with all trims, and that has the AB radio, Bluetooth, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. However, that display does differ depending on which trim you go for. Sense gets an older but usable 10-inch display, whilst Shine and Shine Plus get the new My Citroen Plus 10-inch infotainment system, which is also found in the new Citroen C4X model. It's responsive, intuitive, and has satellite navigation integrated into it, which is always a welcome bonus. The only downside is that there's only one physical shortcut button, and that's to return to your main menu. Underneath the display, you get a couple of air vents that are part of that dual zone climate control, and unlike other EVs out there, here those settings are controlled with actual physical dials and physical buttons. Moving further down, you get a USB-C port, a USB-A port, and a shelf that's perfect for your smartphone. And with high trim levels, this is where the wireless charging pad will be. From there, you have a large cubby with a 12-volt socket, a compartment perfect for your keys. You have your drive mode selector, your gear selector, your electronic parking brake. Then you have a slider, which contains a couple of cup holders, perfect for those smaller bottles of water. And if you lift this armrest, you are rewarded with another decently sized cubby hole. The door bins are also decently sized, and alongside having quite a big glove box, this Shine Plus trim level also came equipped with the Smart Pad support. And what is Smart Pad support? Well, essentially it's a tablet holder and case combination so that your front passenger can use a tablet whilst you're on the go. And the thing about this case is that it's coated in a material that reduces the viewing angle, so even if they are using their tablet, you as a driver won't be distracted. You also have a little compartment to store your tablet, which is a nice touch. And whilst we have talked about these seats and the comfort available to you, but one thing that we still haven't talked about is the space on offer at the front here. But as you can see, at 6 foot, I'm miles away from the top of that roof lining. Leg room, not an issue. And obviously, as always, you can also adjust your steering wheel and your driver's seat. With our Shine Plus trim, you also get front heated seats, and the driver's seat is electrically adjustable. But as you can see, at least for taller rear passengers like me, this sloping roofline does impact the amount of headroom available at the back here. And if you do configure the car with that optional panoramic sunroof, which you definitely should, then this will be further decreased. Material variety at the back here is also decreased, so you start seeing a bit more of those scratchy plastics. But when it comes to actual comfort, there are not many vehicles that get to this level. Probably the only major downside of this rear space is the middle seat, because it is slightly raised, so taller passengers will most definitely be touching that roofline. But if you don't have a middle passenger, then you can fold down the center armrest, which rewards you with a couple of cup holders and a phone holder. When it comes to other niceties at the back here, you also have your seat pockets, you have a couple of air vents, a USB-C port, a USB-A port, and the door bins could be a little bit more generous, but are perfect for your kids' Hot Wheel collection. And on that topic of children, the doors open wide enough so that you can easily fit in a car seat, which you can then attach to the ISOFIX anchor points that are hidden behind the zipped. So all in all, whilst the interior here isn't class leading, it is definitely one of the most comfortable interiors that I've sat in a while. But how much is this X variant of the electrified C4 going to set you back? Well, Sense trims start from £31,995 and have a lot of features as standard, such as your keyless entry, dual zone climate control, and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Wait, because for an additional £2,500, you can upgrade to the Shine trim level, which has a heated steering wheel and that upgraded infotainment display that comes integrated with that satellite navigation. But surely for that price, you could argue that people should just jump straight into the Shine Plus trim level for an additional £500 and benefit from the ski latch, the additional driver assist features, and the lovely Alcantara upholstered seats. Possibly, there's also lots of extras and add-ons so that you can further customize your E-C4X, such as roof boxes and bike racks, so that it meets your needs perfectly. And I know this might be a lot to wrap your head around, so why not have the tedious work done for you and get our vehicle specialists such as Tony to get it all done for you. And with that said, should you buy, lease or finance the Citroen E-C4X? Well, whilst I think not much has been done when it comes to innovation when compared to the original E-C4 in terms of tech, range and performance, I personally don't think it needed, because that original version got a lot of things right. Plus you get a bigger and class-leading boot, a better infotainment screen with shine trims upwards, and probably what sets this car apart the most, the unrivaled amount of comfort available for you and your passengers. When it comes to my personal nitpicks, whilst the range is not the worst out there, it leaves a lot to be desired. Whilst the car comes equipped with rear parking sensors, the view out of the back is extremely poor. And even though it is class-leading in terms of comfort, the amount of space on offer for your rear passengers could also be improved. Personally, I would rather sacrifice a bit of that boot space and increase the legroom available. But again, those are not deal breakers, just small things to consider, because if you are on the market for an extremely comfortable, electrified and stylish family SUV that is not over the top and blends in nicely on our UK roads, then this E-C4X most definitely fits the bill. And if you're ready to go ahead and order one straight down to your front door, then give us a call on 01903 538 835, and our amazing team of vehicle specialists, such as Tony, will be more than happy to help you find your perfect variant that meets all your needs and all your wants. But that's it. If you found this review helpful in any way, then do consider giving it a thumbs up to help push our informative car reviews to more viewers like yourself. Additionally, if you enjoy the kind of content we produce, then do consider subscribing to our channel and help us reach that milestone of 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year and join our amazing community of car enthusiasts. But that's it from me today. You take care and safe driving.